So this is the pretest for Unit 7, and in the first question we have to state whether each expression is a polynomial. What we're really checking for is if something's not a polynomial, and how we find that out is if we're dividing by a particular variable. So I notice immediately on question 1 we're divided by x here, so this one would not be a polynomial. If it is a polynomial, and all these are because we're not dividing by a variable, notice you're allowed to divide by a number though, so if this had been like 3/4 x, that would still be okay, that would be a polynomial. Only if we're dividing by a variable. If it is, identify it as monomial, binomial and trinomial. And you should be able to figure that out from these three words here. So triangle is something that has 3 sides, and a trinomial is something that has 3 terms. Binomial, bicycle, 2 wheels, so the bi part refers to 2, and mono refers to 1. So what we can see from this is that there's actually 2 terms here. We can tell when it's a new term when it's separated by either a plus or a minus. So this one would be binomial. This one would have 3 terms. So that one would be trinomial. And this one there's no add at all or subtract to separate it. So this is just a single term. So in other words, this is a monomial. Find the degree for each polynomial is the next question. Degree refers to the highest power. So if we look at this question, if there is no exponent, remember that means 1. This term has a power of 2, so the highest power for this one is 2. Now for question 6, there is no x term at all, so this is what we call a constant, and a constant has a degree of 0. Now if we have multiple letters, like you can see in this question, then what we do is we actually multiply each term together. So the ones that didn't have an exponent, I've gone ahead and put a power of 1 there. So when I'm working out the degree of this first term, 2 add 1 is 3. When I'm working out the second term, 1 add 1 is 2. And when I'm working out the last term, 1 add 2 is 3. And I'm looking for the highest of those 3 numbers, so it's a tie between these two. So we can say that the degree is 3. Now on our last one, there's no exponent here, so I'm going to go ahead and give that a degree of 1. So the degree for this one is 1. This is a constant. In fact, it's the same constant as this one, although with a negative sign. So this has a degree of 0, and the highest degree, therefore, of those 2 numbers would be 1. Now, it's also worth remembering some of that vocabulary that goes with this. A degree of 0 is referred to as a constant. A degree of 1 is referred to as a linear. A degree 2 is referred to as a quadratic. And if it has an x cubed in it, then we would refer to it as a cubic graph. Arrange the terms of each polynomial so the powers are in ascending order. Now there's 2 questions they can ask. They can normally talk about ascending, which means to go up, or descending, which means to go down. And luckily the descending begins with a D, just like down does as well. So if we're going with ascending order, we need the smallest power first, and then we're going to build up. So I'm looking for my constant term first, so negative 2. And this one has a power of 1, so this goes next. Now there's no sign in front of this, which means it must be positive. Next term is a degree of 2. Notice I'm taking the sign in front of the term as well. And then 3 is the last one. So plus 7x cubed. And all I'm doing there is using the commutative rule and changing the order of the polynomials. Now for this one, it does say powers of x, and I'm trying to confuse us here by putting these a's in. But the power of x here is 1. Power of x here is 2. This one doesn't have a power of x in it at all, so that's that constant term. So the smallest one is actually going to be this one. Then x to the 1. Once again, it's a positive term, so I'm going to put a plus there. And then plus 5 a squared. Now the next questions ask you to find each product, and by finding that, what they're asking you to do really here is to distribute. So we're going to multiply each term together, so 2 times 3x, numbers first and letters second in alphabetical order when we're doing this, so 2 times 3 is 6, and then there's an x. 2 times 5 is 10, and there's a subtract sign there. Now you could just say 2 times negative 5, and that would also give you negative 10 if you prefer. Next one, 3x times 2x, so numbers first, 3 times 2 is 6, x times x is x squared. 3x times 1, anything times by itself is always just the thing you're timesing by, and as it's a negative, I'm going to give it a negative sign. One we have to be super careful of is if we're multiplying 2 negatives together, which will give us a positive. So numbers first, 3, then letters second but in alphabetical order, so x times x is x squared, and then there's a y left over. xy times 4xy, so numbers first, 4, x times x, y times y, once again in alphabetical order. Then for our last one, xy times y negative x squared, so I've got a negative sign here, x times x squared is x cubed. One of the rules I'm really using for that one is that I'm multiplying, I'm going to add the exponents together. As there was no exponent there, we can say 1, and then obviously 1 add 2 gives us 3. Simplify. Now I can see there's parentheses here, so like I did in this section up here, I'm going to go ahead and distribute this first. So 2 times 3x squared, numbers first, 2 times 3. And then letters second, 2 times 5 is 10. And we're going to make it negative 10 because there's a subtract sign there. Now this one we do have to be careful with because we're times it by negative 4x here. So negative 4x times x times x is going to give us x squared. So negative 4x squared. And on this one, negative 4x times negative 2. So the two negatives make a positive. 4 times 2 is 8, and then the letter second. Now what we're looking for here is, are there any like terms? So ones that have the same degree. And I can certainly see here that the 6x squared, take away 4x squared are certainly common terms. So 6x squared take away 4x squared is 2x squared. And then I'm going to put these in descending order this time, so plus 8x minus 10. And putting them in descending order is the most common way of actually answering these questions. We normally prefer the degree to go downwards. And I just put ascending order for this question just to give you practice with that, just in case they do ask it the other way around, just so you're aware of that. Question 15, solve. So that means we've got to find the value of x. So I see the parentheses here again, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So 2 times 2 is 4, x times x is x squared. 2x times 3, numbers first, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. And I've got the x left over. 4 times x squared is just 4x squared. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. Now at the moment we're not solving quadratics. Quadratics refers to those x squared terms. So for all our questions we're doing so far, these should actually cancel. So if I subtract 4x from both sides, 4x squared from both sides, notice that this cancels, and so does this. So actually what we get left with is negative 6x equals negative 12. So do the opposite, divide both sides by negative 6. And x would equal, the two negatives are going to give me a positive, and 12 divided by 6 would give me 2. And we're going to pause the video at this time, and then we'll look at the FOIL questions.